Hello, I'm Blake Crawford, creator of Realm of Basolin, and today I'm going to talk about character creation in the system. I'll have some B-roll of me drawing my character as I go, and I'm basically going through the character creation section of the rulebook to make my own character for an upcoming campaign I'm in. I'll have a specific page numbers and mechanics or sections if I'm speaking about them, so let's get started. So I'm making this the introduction for the system since one of Realm of Basolin's main goals is freedom and character creation. And it'll let me talk about a bunch of different systems while I go through the process. So first up is for me to pick my class. I'm experienced with the system, so I can look at a bunch of different options for an idea I have, or I can just pick something that looks cool or interesting to play. Since there's so many classes in the system, it does require playing for a bit to know what everything does, but once you do, you can know where to look for specific abilities for the specific character goals that you have. So in my current situation, I'm making my character kind of in response to my GM's pitch. It's going to be an exploration-heavy game in a swampy environment, and we're going to be hunting this giant worm monster. So my three goals are going to be play something with a connection to the swamp or the monster, play a character that has a fun exploration mechanic, and I have a personal goal of play a class I haven't played before. So looking at the first goal, it makes me think of being like one with the wilderness and the beast. Maybe I don't want to hunt it, or maybe I think it's majestic, or I'm going full barbarian, I just think it's a worthy challenge. These ideas make me feel like playing a one with nature type character. So the first classes that come to my mind are Druid, Ranger, Seeker, and Mutant. Druid would let me be a spellcaster and would make traveling much easier with spells to create food and heal my allies. This does mean I'll be negating some of the difficulty of the campaign with magic, so I'm not going to pick this one. I want it to be a little bit more challenging and kind of have a survival feeling for the campaign. The Ranger class would let me use bows and the wild magic spell to be a chaos archer. I was imagining my characters having a good time living amongst the swamp despite how messed up it can be. So I think this would fit, but I know that a couple of my other party members are going to be willpower, so I think I'm going to pick something else. Seeker is the closest thing to like a classical wilderness archetype character, like a classic ranger. Seeker would let me use my perception as a weapon and be very good at finding stuff in the woods. This would be good for exploring and being the guide in the party, but it has very little to do during downtime, so I think I'm going to go with my last pick. Mutant. Mutant is a class that lets you copy abilities from monsters by studying them. I like this idea since it makes my goal simple. Find the worm so I can study it and learn whatever I can for myself. And I haven't played this class, so it's a perfect fit. So now I've got my class, and now it's time for me to pick my race. Race choice in Realm of Basolin is important since you unlock most of your class skills at level 5, so until you get there you're going to be relying on your equipment and your natural race passive skills. Also, usually playing in World, race aligns with your character's culture and kind of the backstory of what you're going to have. So I'm going to pick something that synergizes with the nature theme and ideally have something to help synergize with my class. And looking at my DM's custom world, I'm going to pick Orc. Orcs have the ability Runic Tradition, which allows them to pick a single skill from the Rune Carver class to start with. There is one specific one I have my eye on. It's called Wickus Flow. It allows you to use mana from the environment. This gives me a bit more wiggle room for my stats and allows me to have more direct connection to the environment, since the mana you're taking is from the air in your surroundings. And just to go over it again real quick, I could have picked any skill from Rune Carver, regardless of the level. In fact, I'm picking the level 21 right now. After you pick your primary race passive, you get to pick one of your race's secondary race passives. In this case, I'm going to be picking Orc Ingenuity, which gives me +5 to my strength bonus. This will be a good boost early game for me just to get some strength right away and not have to worry about my equipment as much. I could have gone for Orc Intuition, which gives me +5 intelligence, since Mutant does use both of these stats fairly often, but Strength is more handy like immediately, so I'm just going to pick that one. So next section is about character passives. Character passives in Realm of Basolin are a system to help you define your character. You can basically pick any skill from any class in the book, and this can just be something that your character starts with. You also get an additional character passive at level 5 and level 10, capping out at 3 total, unless you're playing an Otherworlder. This is super helpful for defining a character's backstory or personality. It's easiest to grab a skill from something that your character has a background with. In my case, I wanted to start with the mutant study ability right away, because I knew we were going to be fighting monsters until we got to level 5. So this lets me just start getting right on that mutant stuff right away. And additionally, I'm going to get this skill again once I hit level 5 in Mutant. In Realm of Basolin, if you get a skill twice for whatever reason, usually because of a racial ability, you get a better version of the skill. So once I get to level 5, I'll have to talk to my DM and decide what my upgrade is, probably making the mana cheaper, so instead of it costing 2 mana, it would only cost 1. Okay, now it's time to determine my raw stats. Raw stats are like your character's natural abilities before they're enhanced or augmented by armors and skills. My GM is using standard array, which are +6, +5, +4, +3, +1, +0, and -2. I need to decide where these 7 numbers are going to be in my 7 stats. If you look before every class tree in Realm of Basolin, there are recommended stats for every class in the order of prioritization. Strength, intelligence, and willpower are suggested for mutant, but if I had something specific in mind, I could forego this. Like if I wanted to be a faster mutant or a more spell-casting heavy mutant, I could go dexterity or willpower. Strength is going to be my +6 though. I will need strength for my mutant equips and my regenerator skill later. Plus it'll let me be a good user of strength-based weapons that we find. My intelligence will be my +5. This will allow me to learn new mutant skills via the study skill, and also have decent lore checks about the environment of the campaign. I'll probably use equipment to push my intelligence higher as the campaign continues as well. My willpower will be my +4. This will let me have more synergy with the active skills I get. Most active skills in Realm of Basolin have a spell modifier attached to it, which means that willpower just increases these abilities. I could have gone for endurance for this section, because endurance does give you more mana, and mutant does require you to spend mana to equip your mutations. But since I'm playing an orc who has Wickus Flow, mana is a little bit less important for me. Dexterity is going to be my +3. Dexterity affects your movement in Realm of Basolin, and since many monster attacks I'm going to be learning are going to be melee, this will help me close the gap and use my mutant powers. Endurance will be my +1. This gives me a little bit more mana to work with in case the environment is out of mana for me to use. Defense will be my +0. This means that many creatures have a good chance of hitting me with physical attacks, and I have an average size health pool. I will have health regeneration later from mutant, so that's why I didn't prioritize this. I think you could play a tanky version of mutant if you wanted to do this, especially with the right mutant equips right away. Lastly, my dump stat is my -2, and that's going to go into my charisma. I'm a forest-dwelling weirdo, so it kind of makes sense that I'm not very charming. Charisma also reflects my perception, so that does mean my character has a weakness in things like stealth and conversation. So we've gotten to the choosing gear and level. This is more dependent on your GM and your campaign. In my case, we're starting with level 1 and with 1 tier 1 body armor and a weapon of our choice. I'm just going to pick a tier 1 strength armor for my body, because that's the most expensive one, and this is the one I'm getting for free. And then I'll also pick a tier 1 greatsword as my starting weapon. I do know some groups start at level 5, so if you want to have your class abilities right away, that's a good way to do it. And I know that I personally use a gold budget for my players, so they can just go shopping for what they want, but cap them at tier 1. But ultimately, use whatever is going to be good for your campaign and your group. Alright, we're nearly done. Last step is to choose our name and traits. I know some people usually start with this as well, but this has made more sense for this video. So this is my character. His name is Rock, like the big bird. He has grown up in the wilderness with a ranger family that leads groups through the swamp. He is a pleasant guy who enjoys his home and has a deep fascination with monsters. He saw the monstrous worm when he was a boy and became somewhat obsessed with it. Every group he leads into his swamps, he praises the one when he will see his muse again. So yeah, that's pretty much the entire process. I think we kept it just under 10 minutes. But yeah, this isn't the only way to do it as well, and I think a lot of the steps can be done out of order. This is just the steps that I prefer to do it in. And if something's more comfortable for you, that is the first thing or one of the first things that's written in the book. So change the system, mess with it, mess with the rules if you don't like them. If something's supposed to be quick and easy to understand and it's not for you, then change it. The whole point of the system is for it to be easy to change. So happy travels, everyone, and I hope that you make some cool adventures with this stuff.